Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Michael R. Schwaid Bicyclist of the Year Award Ceremony and Celebration on Bicycling. We hope you enjoyed the photo show, which was in memory of Michael. I am Julie Bond. I'm with the Center for Urban Transportation Research at the University of South Florida, and I'll be your co-host today, along with Vanessa Wheeler. And this ceremony will be recorded and available for on-demand playback. So today we have a really great program for you. The program includes background on the Michael R. Schwaid Bicyclist of the Year Award. You'll hear from past awards recipients, and we are really excited to announce the 2023 recipient and hear from him along with a great discussion on bicycling. We'll end the ceremony with some additional resources available for the community. The Michael R. Schwaid Bicyclist of the Year is awarded each year to a bicyclist showing courage and resilience and serves as a role model for other bicyclists. The first Bicyclist of the Year was presented to Michael Schwaid, who is living in Odessa, and he commuted daily to his job at the Pinellas County Courthouse. He earned national recognition from the League of American Bicyclists for surpassing 20,000 commute miles. He was a good friend to everyone, and we miss him. The City of Tampa Mayor presented the award to Michael, you can see in the photo, and that was at one of our Bike Walk Tampa Bay summits. We would like to send a special thanks to the Schwaid family for their continued support of this award. A plaque in Michael's memory with each Bicyclist of the Year named is located at the Center for Urban Transportation Research on the Tampa campus of the University of South Florida. So if you're ever on the campus, stop by and you can see that display with all the names. And now we'd like to recognize the 5 Bicyclists of the Year who were awarded from 2018 to 2022. So in 2018, Steve Brown was our Bicyclist of the Year, and Steve pours all his efforts into creating a place where local cyclists can go for support and rides. And then moving on to 2019, David Guttenplan was our Bicyclist of the Year. And David's journey through recovery and the many miles spent on roadways all over the world has shaped his perspective and inspired his need to help make the streets safer for everyone. Then moving along to 2020, we recognize Pauline Dawkins. Pauline is an outstanding bike advocate, inspiring others to just get out and ride at whatever pace they can, even when not feeling at their best. Moving along to 2021, Bob Gringling was awarded, and Bob has long been one of St. Pete's bike heroes. Everyone knows his name. Using his literary talents to advocate for bicyclists and help challenge how the media commonly reports crashes. And then 2022, we awarded Julie Henning. And Julie is sparking change in the Tampa Bay area for all bicyclists. She uses her voice to talk about her story and to push for change. So those are our Bicyclist of the Year over the years, and we're looking forward to announcing our new cyclist for 2023. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Vanessa Wheeler, who is our pedestrian and bicyclist specialist at the Center for Urban Transportation Research. She lives and bicycles in St. Petersburg and is a League of American Bicyclists cycling instructor, known as an LCI. So Vanessa, I'm going to turn the time over to you now.
All right, thank you so much, Julie. And thank you also to everybody who's been able to come and join us today. Our next discussion, I just want to have a quick chat with 2 of our past recipients, part of the Michael R. Schwaid Bicyclist of the Year legacy. So I'd like to invite David Guttenplan and Bob Greenling to go ahead and turn on their cameras and microphones. Welcome.
Hello.
All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce you both, and then we'll jump in and just have a quick discussion. So first, a little history about you, David. You were a professional bicycle racer. You were running your own racing team. You were coaching. And then in 2016, through no fault of your own, you were struck by a motorist and you nearly died. I know that recovery was really difficult for you, but you returned. You started bicycling again. And you are also now an engineer with the Florida Department of Transportation. So again, thank you for joining us, and so glad that we have you back on the roads with us. It's good to be riding with you.
Thank you.
Likewise, Bob, again, thank you also for joining us. So as Julie mentioned, Bob has been involved in cycling here in St. Pete for many years. And he, of course, previously served on the city's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to the mayor. He's also the former president of the St. Pete Bike Club. And unfortunately, something he has in common with David, back in 2021, Bob, also through no fault of his own, experienced having a motorist crash into him while he was riding his bike. And likewise, recovery has been an ongoing process for you, Bob. I know that has not been great. And so Bob has since been using his literary talents to report and write on how to advocate for bicyclists and change how the media is portraying crashes involving bicyclists and pedestrians. So thank you for your work there. And I understand you are back on a bike as well.
Getting back on it again. Yep. After another crash a few months ago. But
oh,
yeah.
Gosh. Well, again, glad to have you on the road as well. So I'm going to move on to invite both of you to have a quick dialogue with me. I just have a couple of questions. So my first question, so as we discussed, you were both struck by motorists. How has that experience changed your view of riding and the risk involved with it? If you have a sentence or two to share.
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I mean, after I was hit by a car, I've almost decided to try to pretend like I'm invisible out on the roads. I mean, just ride around pretending like no one can see you and try to figure out how to not get hit. It's crazy. I mean, it's a dangerous, dangerous place, but we're you know, I'm working for FDOT, and that was kind of the vision, was how can I make the road safer for bicyclists, pedestrians, walkers, cars, everybody. And I actually commute to work, so I ride 36 miles round trip. So I'm out there and I see the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's really, you know, I use a mirror now so I can see what's happening behind me, and you know, every single opportunity that presents itself, I'm trying to figure out how can we make the right decision to make the roads a little bit safer. So it's definitely impacted me a lot, that's for sure.
I bet. Bob, what do you have to add?
Well, for me, it's definitely changed my perception of the risk, because I mean, I was hit from behind by a driver who, if he wasn't homicidal, he was obviously distracted, because he just slammed into the back of me without hardly even throwing the brakes on. So I have changed my riding habits a little bit. I only ride with groups because I find that I think I feel a little safer, a little more visible. So I just do that. The other thing I do is I'm trying to be as proactive as I can while riding. In other words, I try to take control. If I am riding by myself or at the head of a group of riders, I make sure that any drivers that are coming into contact with the group, that is maybe crossing our path with a perpendicular intersection, I let them know what I want them to do. I point out to them, you know, either I put my hand up, say stop, or I point them to go through, and everybody else behind me stops. We are pretty good over here in St. Pete in following the lead of the lead rider. So if I stop, they stop, and then I try to tell them what I want them to do. And I find that I think drivers want that, because they don't know what we're going to do. We have a reputation of being unpredictable. So if we can be more predictable to them, it helps.
All right, thank you both. And I wish to applaud you both for getting back in the saddle and, you know, getting back out and riding again, because not everybody, I think, can do that. So I'm glad that you're here.
Thanks.
All right, next question. Again, from this perspective of what it means to interface with a motorist and be struck, what would you want other motorists driving alongside you or alongside other bicyclists to be aware of? Like, what advice do you have?
So I always say that the very first thing is I'm not a cone, you know, give me some space. It's extremely scary when a car passes you at full speed. It's like go stand next to a train track, right? At a train station and stand inside that 3-foot window as a train goes by you at 50 miles an hour and or 20 miles an hour even, and see how scary that is. And that's what it feels like when a car passes you at a much greater velocity. Um, you know, that's why I started using the mirror so I could see what's coming behind me. And it's because the first couple months after I was hit by a car, it was like I almost crashed just because I would get so scared so easily when a car would pass me, you know, it's just terrifying. So just say that's the first thing I would want people to just slow down, you know. That's the
Yeah,
biggest thing. If you know we're there, you just, you know, give us some space. You're
it's a
gonna
great
get what you're gonna
analogy.
get. But you know, if there's 2 lanes, just get over. There's no reason to pass right next to someone. Just get over, you know. And I
Right.
think 95% of the people do. That's what's great about the mirror. I kind of always feel like people are, you know, they do slow down, they do get over, and then if they don't, that's when I'm like, all right, I gotta get out of here, you know. But yeah, no, I think that about sums it up. Just, you know, be careful, try to pay attention, and you know, we're people, we're not just a cone.
I love
Right.
that analogy. Bob.
Two things I think. One is, you know, when passing, they need to understand that the space is not always as wide as they think it is. And that's why, as David was saying, move over, because there are no lanes in St. Pete anyway that are wide enough for a motorist and a cyclist to share. In fact, the bicycle map for St. Pete says that right on the map. You know, a bicyclist is allowed the full lane, and you know, most people will tell you it's actually smarter to take the full lane, because then you're sending a signal to the cars behind you. You definitely can't pass here, so wait till the next lane is open. Because, like David said, it's scary. 3 feet is not much room. So I would like motorists to know to give us room, wait until they can move into that other lane. The other thing I would ask motorists to do is to take another couple of seconds at every intersection to assess the situation. There are all kinds of things that are happening at intersections where I believe most bicycle and car crashes happen. Um, there's a lot of conflict there, and if they would just take a couple of seconds, whether they're making a right turn on red, or making a left turn, or even just going straight through, is to take a look to see if there is something else happening that you might not be aware of. You know, there's this thing called saccadic masking that when you look quickly from side to side, you miss things right in front of you. So if you take a few extra seconds to assess the situation, I think you'll be able to help us avoid a collision.
Very good. All right, thank you both. And then one last question for you. You are both a part of this ongoing legacy. And I'd just like to know what it means to you to have received this award, and maybe it's impacted the way you've been thinking moving forward. If you have anything to comment.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it was right after I started working at DOT, so it was really nice to get that recognition, you know, of all the years of racing and traveling all over the world, and then you know, here I am. I'm alive after almost dying. You're right. So I hate for that to be the reason why I got the award, but I mean, I'm back out there doing it again. It's confirmation that it's not for nothing, you know. And it's also confirmation to do the right thing and try to figure out how we can, as a collective group, you know, raise advocacy and figure out how to make the road safer for all of us. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's humbling.
Yeah, it is humbling. And that's the way I feel too. And it's also inspirational to see others who've had crashes and to come back, and inspirational to see the work that you, Vanessa, and Julie do to make cycling safe, and to be put in touch with everybody and to kind of try to build a community of people who have suffered the worst consequences of unsafe driving, and are here to talk about it, and maybe build some relationships where we can work together and try to make things better for everybody in the future. I'm heartened by what I see. I'm not as familiar with Tampa, but I certainly am with St. Pete, and I think the city here is trying to do good things in the way they're designing streets. And we just need to encourage them and call on each other to help support those who are trying to do the right thing.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely a team effort. And that's part of why we're here today. All right. Well, again, thank you both for joining us. And again, for all the work that you do on behalf of bicyclists. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob, David, and Vanessa. Great session. And now we're going to move on to the announcement of our 2023 award recipient. So Steve and Stephen, could you turn your cameras on? Okay, I'm going to turn this honor over to our first award recipient, and I know you're a very good friend of Michael's, Steve Brown. So I'm going to give you that honor of announcing our newest award recipient.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, it really is quite an honor. It wouldn't be nearly as much of an honor if it were named after or renamed after Michael Schwaid, because he was a close friend and a teammate. And he was a very unique individual. Anybody who knew him, he had several nicknames. Radar, because he always seemed to know who was coming up behind us, and never failed to warn us, let us know. He was the safest rider I've ever known. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, and so he's not here to name the next recipient himself. That's unfortunate, but I'm glad to say he was not killed by a car hitting him. It wasn't, but he did suffer a horrible accident, which he came back from shortly before he did pass away of another cause. So anyways, it's all about him. And the sort of legacy that he has left for all of us to carry on. So when I nominated our Bicyclist of the Year for this year, Stephen Barone, I really had to go through my sort of mental list of people who had some qualifications for this. And Stephen really stuck out in my mind because I've known him for a long time. And I'm not going to say that his team has an identity crisis, but they have gone through several different names. Although the focus is very similar, if not exactly the same, and maybe even it may even be a little bit more finely tuned. So when I met him, he was leading Team PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then they became somewhere along the way Team Rockwell and then Team Grace Cycling. And they currently are Team Romp to Cure MS, which I'm going to let Stephen explain that name. It's very significant, and it really goes to the core of what his team is all about. So all I know is that in the numbers, all of our teams that did charity rides wanted to be like his team. So somewhere over $600,000 raised in the team in the time that he's been leading a team for these charity rides. Not just the Bike MS, but also we've seen him on Tour de Cure, the Honor Ride. I think you'll see there's actually a picture of him wearing that jersey in the on the screen right now. and Stephen well over $30,000 raised personally for those events. So it's a really great honor to introduce Stephen Barone. Maybe Steve, you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about your team and your focus and about the name Team Romp to Cure MS.
Yeah, well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. It's that introduction is just really really appreciated and very kind. When I think about Michael's story and his legacy and some of the courage and the resilience and the incredible stories of the past winners of this award, I think David and Bob said earlier, it really is humbling, and it really is. It's an honor to be sort of picking up the torch for this great recognition. So thank you. I want to thank the Schwaid family and everyone involved for that. So like Steve said, really my involvement in the Tampa Bay community as a cyclist began probably 20 years or so ago. And like, many people that ride their bikes, I was, just really doing it recreationally, casually. And it wasn't until I got involved in a charity ride, probably around 2006 or 2007, where I got to think of my relationship with my bicycle differently and stop thinking of it as just like a vehicle to get from point A to point B, but as a vehicle to help others. And that sort of began my opportunity, my story to do more and to raise awareness for different causes like the National MS Society through fundraising and some of those other organizations that Steve mentioned, and to inspire and to be a role model and a leader for others in the cycling community to do more. I've never been the fastest person in a group. I haven't done a lot of races. I haven't had the incredible stories of, overcoming adversity and terrible crashes, although I did crash myself, but nothing to that extent. But what I think I've been able to do over the years is care about other people around me and try to be an advocate for safe cycling, camaraderie, and just thinking about others while you're going and cycling and enjoying the beauty of riding a bicycle. So that's really what it's sort of meant to me. And it's just, again, a privilege and an honor to be part of this incredible group of people that are, advocates and champions for cycling and bicycling.
Great,
Well said.
very well said, Stephen. And again, I just want to congratulate on behalf of the Center for Urban Transportation Research and the Schwaid family. We're excited to have you as part of this group.
It's my privilege. Thank you. My honor.
I guess at this point, we're going to move along and we're going to just have a panel discussion like Vanessa had with David and Bob. So we will go into that part of the awards ceremony.
Hey, before we go on, can I just interrupt for a second? Stephen, can you describe for everybody or explain what the Team Romp to Cure MS was about?
Yeah, I can. I'll just say a few things about that. So a good friend of mine, also a cyclist, Brad Romp, who has MS, we met many years ago, and we've been involved over the years in various teams in support of the National MS Society. So Team Romp to Cure MS is taken from his name, Romp, and we've created a very large team of passionate folks that get involved, again, in fundraising and writing together and trying to just inspire and be a role model to do more to raise awareness and funds for this particular cause, which is near and dear to my heart and many people that I know who have MS. So we ride once a year in Bike MS, which is, many of you know, is the largest charitable fundraising bicycling event in the country. And we raise a lot of money. We do a lot of good in the community. So it's a privilege to be one of the captains for that team, as I have over the years for many teams, to be able to use our bicycles, to be able to do good, raise money, and raise awareness for really good causes.
Great, thanks. I'm glad we got that in. That's really that's very encouraging.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
That's great. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so I know both of you have many miles that you have ridden. So what advice do you have for someone who wants to start riding but just doesn't know where to begin?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll kick this off because I had an experience with this just recently when I was a support rider on a cross Florida ride. And I was riding with someone who was coming back from long COVID and COVID pneumonia. She had gained some weight. She was telling me all of this on the ride, and she was struggling a little bit on the first day. And she said, "What can I do to actually get a little faster and go more miles?" And it just really get used to being on the bike for it because she was really having a good time in spite of the struggle. And I said, the best thing you can do is to join a group. Now, finding the right group, that's hard because a group like mine, while we have some things in common with Steven's group and with a lot of groups that do charity rides, we have a pretty singular focus with a ride speed that is it's kind of narrowly focused, and we don't really I wouldn't say that we're all inclusive. Not that we don't want to be, it's just I feel like there's only so much I can do. Steven's group, on the other hand, actually does accommodate a much wider range of cyclists. But what I told this woman was, you just have to find the right group. And whether you do that through Facebook or through Meetup or through your local bike shop, you might have to kiss a few frogs before you find your prince. But it's the main thing is if you're part of a group and people are expecting you to be there, that is an incentive for you to show up. And showing up is 80%. So that would be the number one thing I would tell people to do.
Great. Stephen?
Yeah, no, I can't add much more to that. I think that's right. I think we have the good fortune of living in Tampa Bay community here where we can ride 12 months out of the year. And there are so many clubs and groups in the Tampa Bay community. And I would say social media and other outlets like that are a great place to just start, right? Just get out there, do a little research, find a club or a group nearby, like Steve said, that maybe you have some similarities in terms of your goals. And then just reach out, and you'll be surprised how quickly people reach back to you and want to extend open arms to bring you in and show you the ropes. So I think it's really what Steve said, just take advantage of all the great clubs and organizations out there and ask.
Great. I'd also like to add that a great resource in this community is our local bike shops. So I know many people they may not have a bike, they may not have the right bike. We know that the good fit is very important. So I would suggest, going to your local bike shop, talking to those experts, finding the bike that's right for you. And then they also have resources for group rides. So Steve indicated, find the right group. A lot of bike shops host beginner rides. I know there's several in our local area, and that is where I know a lot of people have started. They get the right bike, they start out that beginner group, they feel very supported, and then they go from there in biking. Okay, so next question. If you could change just one thing about bicycling in Tampa Bay, what would it be?
You want to try this one first?
I'll take this one. Yeah, thanks, Steve. If I had one thing, I would say definitely more bike lanes, wider bike lanes, and to the extent possible, protected bike lanes. I know there are communities around the country that have invested in that sort of infrastructure for looking out for the ability for cyclists to get from point A to point B in a safe way and to sort of peacefully coexist with cars on the road. So it would definitely be more bike lanes and wider bike lanes is the one thing I would say. Steve?
Yeah, and I think in addition to bike lanes, the multi-use trails, better to connect those so that there aren't, again, this goes back to the last two bike tours that I've worked as a support rider on, one of which was this last weekend. There are all these bike trails, and so many of them are not connected, or they're connected by a series of sidewalks, which are not really great for they're great for slower riders. I shouldn't say they're not even great for slower riders. They're called them sidewalks for a reason, and they're not really meant for bicycles. So, if we could, get the trail system to connect, and I know the municipalities are doing some hard work on that. It's not always showing up, and I know it's a very slow process, but that would encourage people to get on their bikes, especially if you're commuting, so that you can get from here to there. Maybe you're not with a group. And it makes it a lot safer, of course. So just, more multi-use paths and a better connection from one to the other, so we can really get from point A to point B on that vehicle.
Great. Well, the good news is we have, like you said, a lot of organizations, including FDOT, who are working to make more connected trails, more infrastructure. We know infrastructure makes a huge difference in our bicycling. And so that is the good news. The one thing you're looking at changing is happening in our area. Okay. So our next question is, how has being a bicyclist changed your perspective as a motorist? Because I know both of you bike, but I know both of you are motorists, right? As many of us are. Any advice for those fellow drivers who may not be bicyclists? What do you tell them?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, interestingly enough, I just about got hit by a car on this bike tour last weekend, and the person just clearly wasn't looking. I think so. That's the number one thing. You have to be aware that there are cyclists out there, not just motorcyclists. We see those bumper stickers all the time. But pedestrians and bicyclists, they may not be where you expect them to be. And Bob actually mentioned something about this earlier, which was there is this, you look back and forth quickly, there's sort of a built-in blind spot that you don't really see that whole panorama all as one big picture. So as a motorist, you just have to be patient. If you're trying to pass a group of cyclists, it's not worth the lives of those cyclists to get where you're going 10 seconds sooner. So give it 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Don't pull out right in front of them. Wait till the group, is passed or in a safe position before you go around them, and give them a wide, a wide space between your car and the bicycle. There's just a few seconds of your time is just not enough to risk that, to risk those lives.
Yeah, no, that's well said, Steve. I would, all I would add to that is just, everyone's so busy and it's easy to be distracted while you're driving. And even as a cyclist myself, the temptation to, answer a call or a chat or just, adjust something in your car is great. But we have to be more focused on the one and only job we have, which is driving our car in a safe way. And the other thing I'd say is just remember that people on bicycles or pedestrians, just remember that we're not just an obstacle in their way, getting in the way of being late. We're brothers, we're sisters, we have families, we have people that love us and want us to get home, and think of us that way, not as an obstacle, is what I would add.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the one thing I would add is when I am commuting to work on my bike or just riding around, if a motorist is friendly and nice and I can tell, that makes my day. I'm like, if it just really makes you feel like you're okay on the road when a motorist does something nice. So I always tell people, if you see a bicyclist, just smile and wave, be courteous, and it really does make the bicyclist day.
Yeah,
okay,
Julie,
our next question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that real quick. I'm really glad you said that, because the concept of share the road, it really is a two-way street, and I agree with that. And so often when I'm in large groups, I'm constantly encouraging those around me to think of it as that two-way street and acknowledge and thank motorists who are being careful and courteous. And it's just mutual respect, and that goes a long way. So you're building goodwill on both sides. So thank you for mentioning that, Julie.
Yes. Okay, our next question is, what is the greatest improvement you have seen while riding in the Tampa Bay area? Anything you want to comment on? Greatest improvement?
Well, certainly the bike lane infrastructure, since my team doesn't ride on trails very often, we do ride on the streets. And I think bike lanes have been adopted more widely. There are some places where I still scratch my head, like, why is there a bike lane on one side of the road but not the other? And why don't they sweep these bike lanes more often? And I know a lot of that has to do with budget. There's only so much money to go around. And it's not all about us. But nevertheless, I still have seen a great improvement in bike lanes in the areas that we ride in, and more bike lanes being added to new streets when they're built. It's not an afterthought on new streets, which is really encouraging. So that helps us, and if we can stay in the bike lane, that makes the motorists happy as well, which of course serves all of us.
Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. And I'd love to see even more of that. I think, there's been improvements over the years. I think there's a lot of room for more, for sure. I'd also add one thing that kind of came to mind when I thought about improvements over the years is, and it's not unique to Tampa Bay, but it's technology. The technology is available to us as cyclists, whether it be using lights that have high visibility that can be seen from a greater distance by motorists, both rear and headlights and taillights, even to things like taillights that are sensitive to oncoming traffic and can alert you as a cyclist to know that there's a car coming. Maybe you go over to the right. So and even technology in cars themselves that are putting more safety features out there to avoid these types of crashes. Those are some of the improvements I've seen, along with what you mentioned, Steve, that are encouraging.
Great. Yes, we are seeing a lot of good change, and I think cycling is increasing in the Tampa Bay area. So we're seeing a lot of people out riding, and I think with infrastructure improving, it's getting better for bicyclists in this area. And we have so many great days of weather, right? We are so fortunate to get out and be able to ride here. It's flat. It's lots of bike paths, lots of great group rides. So I think we're fortunate on all those levels here in the Tampa Bay area. Okay. So that concludes our panel discussion. Stephen, as the new Michael Schwaid awardee, did you have any final words for us before I talk a little bit about additional resources? And I would invite everyone to turn their cameras on.
No, nothing else I can add, just other than, thank you. And it's quite an honor and a privilege, and I hope to take this responsibility and do even more with it. So thank you again to the Schwaid family and everyone who's I'm picking this torch up and carrying that torch along for. So thank you.
Yes, lots of applause going on. Okay, I just wanted to mention some additional resources. As you can all help us shift the narrative. And so there is a 1-hour class available to anyone in the Tampa Bay area or nationwide. And you can learn how we talk about bicycling really makes an impact. And so that course at the Center for Urban Transportation Research is available. There is a QR code, or you can go to the Center for Urban Transportation Research website and sign up for that class. Finally, thank you all for joining us. We're looking forward to a great 2024. So we wish you all happy holidays and a great new year. We'll have many new things happening, and I think it's going to be a really great year. We were missing 2 of our Michael Schwaid awardees, Pauline and Julie, today, but they are also doing great things out there. They just could not join us today. So I want to congratulate them also. And then again, congratulations to you.